there, so that's the way we go. All right. So it says we are live. So I upgraded my internet connection too, so hopefully I'm coming across a little bit more clearly than I have in the past. But we are all right. We're definitely live now because I can see this also in the YouTube studio as well as StreamYard here. But anyway, so I'm going to give it a few more minutes before we jump right into it, or a few more seconds rather, before we jump right into it, because there's a little bit of a delay sometimes. But wanted to introduce Adam. I don't know if I'm supposed to use your last name or not, so I'm not going to. But you work for Kudelski Security, and you're a specialist in the crypto space. Not that anyone on the entire planet right now is really an expert, unless you're a cryptologist. But you are kind of a specialist in this space. And we wanted to talk about crypto and speculate a little bit about different crypto and metaverse projects. And I just want to start off by saying that everything we talk about today is really speculation, because nobody knows what the hell is going on and what is going to happen in the future. The metaverse is here, it's happening, but if you say you know what's going on, you definitely don't know what's going on. But yeah, so introduce us to yourself, Adam. Tell us a little bit about what you do, and questions will start coming in as we get started.
Sure. And those come in, will those come in here, or I got to be on YouTube?
No, they'll come in here and I'll put them up on the screen so you can't see them on your side. I can see them on mine.
Okay.
But, all right.
Yeah. So
actually, I don't know. You might be able to see them. We'll see.
Okay. Yeah, I do see some actually.
Okay. Yeah. You see, Isaiah Castillo making a comment there. He says, you should put this on your Patreon. I probably should. I'm not very good at running my Patreon yet. I'm still learning how to do all that stuff. So you are correct. Thank you. Yeah.
But I'll introduce myself. So my name is Adam. Like you said, I work for Kudelski, which is we're about a 3,900 to 4,000 employee company. But I work specifically in the innovation team, which is our blockchain, or has blockchain within it. We primarily do security assessments, which is cybersecurity stuff for different blockchain companies. That could be financial technology companies incorporating blockchain, DeFi protocols, which is, I like how there's already a Tesla comment. There could be DeFi protocols or different blockchains. So we work with Solana, at least the ones I can talk about: Solana, Crypto.com, Binance. We did their TSS library, which is their threshold cryptography stuff. IOHK, which is associated to Cardano. That'll probably get a lot of attention, but we also are working with a wide variety of projects I can't talk about. We do generally like 4 to 5 in parallel at one time. I do not actually do the audits or the assessments myself. I'm on the business side of things. So I'm not a technical expert. I'm absolutely not an expert on crypto. Whatever I say is mostly speculation. I don't know anybody other than anybody else. So.
Oh, wow. Right off the bat, Hiker Dave, $10 for a super sticker. Thank you so much, Hiker Dave. That's great. And let me see here. Sam Weimark has a question. What are your thoughts on Decentraland?
Do you want me to answer that?
Yeah, go ahead. Let's be clear. No one here is an expert in the metaverse, but we are speculating here. So I'm going to give Adam's going to give his answer, and then I'm going to give mine. So go ahead, Adam.
So the thing about Decentraland, I do like, so it is on Ethereum, which is trustless and decentralized, more decentralized than a lot of other blockchains, I would say. Our firm doesn't specifically work with Ethereum too much. I know a little bit about Ethereum. I'm not an expert compared to a lot of people, but because we'll probably just start talking about metaverse right here.
Yeah.
I want to kind of start with about Facebook, because like Mark Zuckerberg kind of explained how they don't think the metaverse exists yet. Based on his explanation of it, I didn't really agree with it, because he kind of talks about it as if it's like a VR virtual world, and it looks very obviously fake. I've always kind of viewed the metaverse as like a physical world incorporated with the virtual world, whereas his version of the metaverse to me sounds more like just an augmented reality virtual. You have your headset on with Oculus. But the cool thing about Decentraland compared to something like Facebook is that it's completely built by the community and it's not owned by anybody specifically. If you walk around Decentraland, each person owns like their own little plot of land, and they can build basically whatever they want in Decentraland. But on that, there's also like Decentraland's not the only metaverse or decentralized like open world. There's also like the Sandbox. Even Solana has different platforms. You can go to a bunch of different blockchains who all have different ones. So I like the idea of Decentraland, but I also fear there's a lot of risks with decentralized metaverses that I don't know. There's a lot that needs to be figured out. It's not mature yet to even like I feel like even comment on Decentraland. Yeah, but
Right.
it is. I mean, it's been in development for years now. So
So there's a lot to be said about that, like about the decentralized versus centralized metaverse. And you and I have had this discussion offline a couple of times, where we're thinking that in a more of a centralized metaverse with plenty of artistic and creative freedom in there is probably going to be the way to go. I liken this to the sort of Facebook versus what was the, I can't even remember the name of the other thing. Who was the competitor to Facebook? Had Tom,
oh,
the guy
MySpace.
MySpace. Yeah, the Facebook versus MySpace wars, where MySpace was just almost completely unregulated. You could do whatever you want. So the experience half the time when you were scrolling through MySpace was actually just annoying as hell. And Facebook found out, discovered a way to monetize that. They got rid of like the time-based, timeline, and they really created this like advertiser exploited one. That's kind of what I'm looking at here in terms of the angles for Decentraland. Is if it's truly going to be decentralized, if it's completely built by its users, what kind of rules are they going to set up for people as far as what and how they can monetize it, right? Advertising for products and for services is going to start right away. It's not just digital products; it's going to be for everything. Like you may have like regular business interactions in a metaverse of some sort, like meeting in an augmented or virtual reality setting. I don't know. Like I do almost all of my business now on online through through teleconferences and Zoom and all that stuff. So I can imagine us going to something like that, and not Decentraland as a game being a part of that, but maybe a part of Decentraland becoming something that's a little bit more commercialized. Yeah. So hold on a second. Sam also says, thank you guys. It's going to get really popular. I'm going to hold long-term. Thanks again. What do you mean by hold long-term? Thanks again. You mean Decentraland Mana, which is the currency associated with that? Sam, yeah. You can feel free to make that comment.
I'm going to cough. Something interesting to comment about Decentraland too, just on your comment about hold long-term. There are different ways to invest in Decentraland too, because you can even buy the NFT aspect of it. Because there are people paying as much as like $30,000 for different plots of land in Decentraland. Right. And on the whole monetization aspect, you can find ways probably to monetize your plot of land within Decentraland.
Yeah.
And then even on the centralized like Facebook Meta, compared to using a decentralized metaverse,
right.
It's also a lot more like, I don't know the word, but Facebook is going to create a game around becoming profitable. Decentraland is created for the players by the players,
right,
or by the users. So I think that's also something I find more appealing about like a decentralized metaverse. But I also have fears about like the advertisement aspect on having violent stuff on advertisements, having people do pornographic stuff on advertisements, whatever it is.
That's going to happen instantly. That's not. Right. If it's not happening already, I would be absolutely stunned. I think I mentioned before on a live cast. I know someone here in San Diego that's developing an app right now. You can walk around town, hold your phone up in front of your face, and as you pan, it will approximate what the app thinks everyone looks like naked. And I mean, so just instantly exploitation of the human body through augmented reality, just instantly. And tell me you're surprised by this. You're not, right? It's like that was just instantly the thing that he went with.
But if you read the Decentraland white paper, they put it in there that they don't have a solution for it. And I've talked to other projects because I get to meet with a lot of projects directly that work in the crypto space, primarily in Solana. And I at least asked one. They're called Celerity VR, and they haven't launched yet. But I think they do have they're at least trying to think of a solution to manage stuff like that. I don't know how they're going to do it, but they're at least, other teams are now realizing there might be a better way to do it than Decentraland has done it. And also I haven't played Decentraland, so I'm probably not the best one to ask. I've only read the white paper and like speculated on it. But because there's a lot of in-game transactions, in-game marketplaces, and with gas fees right now, at least, it's not very viable. And if Ethereum 2.0 came out, it would drastically reduce gas fees and be more scalable. But I don't think Ethereum at the current stage is the best for gaming.
Okay, hold on just a second. Explain gas fees for the audience. What is a gas fee? There's going to be people on here that have no idea what you're talking about.
Nothing's free. So gas fees on Ethereum, they use GWEI, or GWEI, I believe it's spelled. Every time you do a transaction on the network, and a transaction is basically any time you use the network for anything, you have to use some ether. And that ether, as the network becomes more congested, meaning more people are using the network, the gas fees are going to increase because it only is allowed to handle a certain number of transactions per second, which right now,
it's the cost of the transaction is what you're saying.
Basically, gas is how much it costs to transact, but when more people are using the network, the higher the gas fees. So as it scales, the more expensive it actually becomes.
So right now, as Ethereum's network is set up, they can only do a few dozen transactions per second.
It's between like 15 and 30. But when there's NFT drops or IDOs, which are like coin offerings, basically, there's a lot of people trying to use the network at once, which sometimes the gas fees get anywhere between like $100 to $300.
Okay.
I've seen somebody pay, it was in the millions once, but they actually got it refunded. But there are certain times where the network kind of doesn't handle it correctly and gas skyrockets. They end up paying a lot more than expected. But when you transact on an Ethereum, on an application like MetaMask wallet, it gives you an estimate, but it might not necessarily be the exact price. And you won't know until the transaction gets verified and approved. Once that happens, and it goes through, and then you get paid, then you pay the gas fees. But if you authorize a transaction, you cancel it, you still pay the gas.
So that kind of leads us into this next discussion. I keep looking at your sweatshirt there, with your
Solana monkey business.
Solana monkey business NFT there. Let's talk about NFTs, Metaverse, Decentraland, games where you're producing and exchanging NFTs. Let's talk about how we're going to monetize the Metaverse. A couple of different ways we could monetize the Metaverse here.
Mm-hmm. I don't like the word Metaverse with that aspect. It depends how we define Metaverse now, but just monetizing NFTs. So there's a few different ways. I think a lot of people just assume art. Like if you see CryptoPunks, they're going for $400,000 plus up to like $7 million.
Yeah.
Those don't necessarily have much value to them. It's just kind of a piece of history.
Right. And you and I discussed this. I think they're basically Dutch tulips.
But like if NFTs and collectibles stay around, I think what CryptoPunks have still created a community, and with social media, it's a status symbol. It's kind of similar to buying, like, I don't know, a Lamborghini or something like that. But being it's on the internet, it's like people are gaining Twitter followers. When I changed my profile picture on Twitter, I gained immediately like 150. And people have, just because within at least Solana's community has it's like kind of symbolic of whatever, and everything's also transparent. You can fully see everything on the blockchain, so somebody can see what I bought this for, and they can also see what it's worth right now. And there's nothing I can do to prevent that besides not tell people I own this monkey. But so there's the collectible aspect. There's different ways to use collectibles because people create these things called DAOs. So I'm inside the Monk DAO. If I list my monkey or remove myself, it'll remove myself.
What does DAO stand for?
Right. So if I have to be holding this, I cannot have it listed on the marketplace or removed. I have to be verified through something on Discord. Being part of the DAO, a DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization.
Okay.
Which is within itself is also debatable because for a lot of DAOs, you're still relying on like an authority. So like there's still a development team. There's still founders of the DAO. they have a lot more influence than somebody that's within the DAO that's just nobody, you know. But essentially, whenever something comes about, like we have governance voting. So I'll go in the Discord and there's a bunch of people voting on different things, like should we hire this person? Should we do this with this? Whatever. It could be anything that the DAO thinks about. So this is just the monkey DAOs, for example, but they also have town halls, and there's 5,000 of these. They're all randomly algorithmically generated. Cheers. Oh, nice.
Epic Hands says, cheers, gentlemen. And I just got one too to be social. You know, my wife definitely doesn't approve, but I think we're going to make drinking on the live stream on Wednesdays kind of a regular thing. It's what was they made up a rule like back in the 1980s, you couldn't drink on live television or something like that. But there's no rule about the internet where you can do that. So anyway, Epic Hamster, awesome. But all right, so when we're talking about NFTs here, I'm struggling to understand the sort of connection between doing something useful with NFTs and like video games, and useful with NFTs and the metaverse. Like, how does that work? How are you actually going to make money in the future? Something that's beyond just owning a piece of history or owning a collectible. And granted, I understand that not everything in a video game has to have purpose, but are we going to see like weapons drops in video games now?
Yes.
Be NFTs? Okay.
So even in Decentraland, people get airdropped things into their wallet that are like collectible items, and those, like whoever, you could obviously make unique traits with those. So there's actually something called Loot, which is on Ethereum, and Solana has copied it with Gamut. Gamut was GMOOT, and then Loot is just LOOT. Gamut is, so GM is good morning, so they just used good morning, which is like a phrase everybody uses in the NFT community. But those, like if you looked at the NFTs, it's just a JPEG picture. It has a list of items and it's just text. And if you looked at it, you'd be like, this is the dumbest thing ever. But some of them are going for $50,000. But that is really betting on the metaverse and betting on a decentralized metaverse. That's betting that those, like when you go into a game, that NFT is attached to your wallet. So when you connect your wallet to that game will essentially give you the loot. But when it's sitting in your wallet, it's just a list of items, but it's worth something inside of a video game. And some of those are more unique, more rare than others. And I'll just use levels as an example. There might be like a level 1, you have these different items. In order to get to level 2, you need these items. People are going to pay more for those items. And I mean, being that these apps can be created by anything, you could do anything you can do with a computer program inside of these games. Create status, I don't know, let you into different areas that are exclusive. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of things you can think about. I haven't looked too much into Loot. It just seems extremely speculative.
I think about how much money is spent on in-game money that's spent right now. And I'm thinking that NFTs are a way to create scarcity inside of video games.
Right.
No matter if they're done in 2D space right now or in the meta, something like Decentraland or something like that. It's a way to create scarcity. So let's say you had something like what was it? I can't think of the name of the video game my kids love right now. The one you airdrop, yes, the one you airdrop on the island and murder everyone. It's great. It's like. I understand this is just a change in.
You buy the game passes.
Most people, right? But you buy the game pass. Most people my age play video games too. I just happen not to be a huge gamer, but there isn't really a way in Fortnite right now to create scarcity with different items, right? NFTs are a way to do that. You can literally create one unique item inside a game piece or a game and have everyone fight over it, or everyone purchase it or exchange it or something like that. I think that's one of the most interesting things about NFTs. That's one of the most interesting applications for me for NFTs. It's not the collectibles. It's about creating digital scarcity, which doesn't seem – there are a lot of people who don't get this. I understand that. There are a lot of people who don't get this. But there are a lot of gamers that spend a lot of time doing this. They spend a lot of time chasing after items that only exist in a virtual world. And they spend thousands of dollars to do it. Tens of thousands of dollars to do it. I'm sure we've all heard the stories of people like starving to death inside of, internet cafes or never leaving their rooms for like 2 years at a time and doing nothing but playing video games. That's you? But you're traveling pretty soon to go to
Yeah,
a Solana conference, right?
correct.
So there you go.
But I did see the head of crypto at Visa, I believe it was Visa. I forgot his name, but he was talking about how the NFT collectible and DAO and all of that has actually created some sort of like ability for people to make friends that weren't really good at making friends.
Yeah.
And I'll also point out, because a lot of people within the NFT community are been gamers their entire life. So I think a lot of people that didn't play video games and don't really like sitting on the computer all day don't comprehend that. But like people just sit on their computer all day on Twitter and just hang out with random people. And this takes away the physical appearance of it. It's just you're part of a community. And like when somebody else buys a Solana monkey, you're also buying into that community, that group of people, and that group of people might all have similar mentality and perception of things. So you're, as weird as it sounds, like it has created a way for people to make friends online that didn't really exist before, which is very interesting. And then also the gaming aspect, just because all these people are sitting within a game, and I know a lot of people played RuneScape or World of Warcraft that are buying in NFTs, because it also is like, if anybody's ever played RuneScape before the Grand Exchange existed, which was like you could just go to this exchange and just buy items and sell them. You could flip items for buy low, sell high. Basically, it's like a stock investing. But people used to just go around, and there was no exchange. You just had to stand around a bunch of other people, and it was like the Falador Park or something, and everybody's just saying buying whatever item for this amount of money. And there might be somebody like 10 feet away that's saying buying it for a different price, but that person didn't see them. So you buy it there, you sell it for another price. And NFTs are similar, because you can't just sell it on the market. You always need somebody else to agree that, yeah, I want to buy this monkey for that price, because there might be 3,000 monkeys on the market, but you have to buy a specific one.
All right, man. We got our first controversial question. Does Adam like Solana more than Ethereum, and why?
So I work for a company that works with Solana. I just kind of fell into that because our company works directly with Solana. I do work with Ethereum as well. We don't work with Ethereum as much. I wouldn't say I have preference. As of right now, I own both Solana and Ethereum, but I don't believe in everybody always talks about an Ethereum killer or a Bitcoin killer or whatever killer. I believe in a multi-chain universe, meaning that all blockchains are going to be interoperable and they're going to communicate with each other. Solana has created a wormhole. The wormhole connects Solana to Ethereum, so you can move assets between both blockchains. You can also use things like Chainflip or Polkadot. Polkadot has parachains, parabridges. You can actually connect two different blockchains between each other. So I don't have preference. I believe they have their own use cases.
So I think there's a disconnect between when people ask that question, like, does Adam like Solana more than Ethereum, and why? There's a disconnect between the people who are just invested in crypto, hoping to make money off of the rise of, in price of cryptocurrency, or people like me who are far more interested in its adoption and the adoption of decentralized finance, far more interested in the apps that are being developed on all these different blockchains. Talk to us a little bit about Solana and maybe Algorand, maybe Cardano, and the uses that these blockchains are actually getting at this point. Like, how much is being developed for these different blockchains?
So there are a lot of different blockchains. I'll start with that. There's probably over 5,000, honestly. So when people try to just try to learn, I'll help you learn. I'm a crypto. I literally cannot sleep. All I do is look at crypto all day.
The Epic answer says, "I'm trying to learn. I'm old." All right.
So if you do want to learn about crypto, though, I highly recommend actually like going and using the apps. Something that's deferring people from Ethereum when they actually go and try it out is, I don't know if you're here when we were talking about gas fees, but it costs a lot to transact and actually move money around Ethereum's network. Solana costs like 0.00007 cents or something like that. It's extremely cheap to do one transaction. Ethereum's transactions cost anywhere from $10 to $300. So it's not really logical for most people to use Ethereum because they cannot afford to spend $10 per transaction. But Solana, like you can just move money around like for almost next to nothing. So like for gaming, for example, I think Solana is really good for social platforms and gaming right now. It allows people to really, yeah, it allows people to do it for super cheap, because if you're trying to transact a lot, because gaming could have a lot of transactions, if you're trying to like trade with somebody, if you want to buy something from a store, you're gonna have to transact, because it's gonna have to move stuff from one account or one wallet to your wallet. So on Ethereum, it doesn't make sense to do $10 transactions every time you want to buy something off the Decentraland marketplace, when you could do it on something like Solana. But there is also layer 2s on Ethereum. So you could consider layer 2s, because those are scaling solutions like Polygon, or I don't know, there's a bunch of them now. Even Bitcoin has stacks, which is a layer 2 that helps with scaling. But so if I would say right now, it seems like Solana is probably winning in like mass adoption of NFTs. I think Ethereum has the most expensive NFTs, and it might stay that way, just because they've really solidified themselves and they're already worth a ton of money. So when you buy a CryptoPunk for $400,000, it's like, oh, $10 gas is nothing. Because it doesn't matter how much money you're moving. If you move $5 or $500,000 in Ethereum, the gas fee is not going to scale with the amount of money you're moving. Same as Solana, if you move $100,000 or $1, the gas fee is still the same.
So do you think that the gas fees, though, are going to affect, like, so right now, like through a couple of my companies, I accept crypto for a number of different things. Like right now, you're telling me Ethereum is going to charge me anywhere between $300 and $300 or something like that to do any, or $10 and $300 to do a transaction. So of course, I'm not going to let people pay for items anymore on Ethereum.
Well, yours that might be different, because you might be going through somebody like BitPay or do you use BitPay?
No, we use I can't remember the name of the system we use right now, but I think I'll have to ask the guy who actually runs the shop. But we're accepting crypto for that, and it would make sense for us to accept Solana and Algorand right now, because their fees are so much lower.
But I would say the difference with that, if you're not doing it actually on the network, you're probably doing it like Coinbase. If you use Coinbase, they're not going to charge you gas fees. They're going to charge you Coinbase's fees, because
but Coinbase's fees are still 3% or something ridiculous like that.
But they're the custodian of it, and they're probably they're not using the network. They're just moving it around themselves, and they're still holding your Ethereum anyways until you move it out of your wallet.
I think we may actually be using Coinbase.
Okay.
To do that, yeah.
But in that sense, they're finding ways around using the network, where they're actually just moving it between themselves.
Okay.
And they're not actually using the network and paying gas on those transactions. So with that, it's a little bit different, but those are also obviously like centralized sources that are doing it. Like Binance, Coinbase are centralized exchanges, or FTX, if you know FTX.
So talk to me a little bit about so like the different. Let's talk about DeFi apps in general. What is decentralized finance? How is it going to impact us in the future?
Jeez, that's a hard question.
It's not one you prepared for. Sorry.
Because a lot of people talk about DeFi, and they also, I don't know, there's so many ways to approach DeFi, and some of them are not decentralized, but they still call them DeFi DApps. DeFi meaning decentralized finance, dApps, decentralized applications. But there's also debates around, like, anything I'm going to answer here is like it's all controversial. Basically, everything in crypto is controversial, and all these buzzwords are also controversial. Like decentralization, how do you actually measure that? But
yeah,
DeFi,
I didn't even think about that. How would you measure decentralization?
Right, because you'll see a lot of arguments about Algorand being centralized, Solana being centralized. There's Near protocol. People will say it's centralized. Avalanche will say it's centralized. And then they as in like maximalists generally, take a sip. So DeFi is different, because so if you try to use a savings account right now, if you go to like, I just got a loan letter from American Express, and it's like, I don't even know, or like some interest account. It's like, it's embarrassing how much they pay you. It's less than inflation.
Right.
So you're giving them money.
It's less than, it's like 0.1% on a savings account.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it's almost no different than holding your bank account. Like I know people that hold they get 0.5% interest per year in their savings account. It's like, do you even know if you got that? You can, like, do you even know if they paid you that? Unless you have $1 billion, like that's even with $1 billion, it's
It's
still like,
still not worth
yeah.
that much. Like, yeah. Right?
Um,
It wasn't that long ago when people were getting 5% on savings accounts. So like prior to 2008, people were getting that much on savings accounts.
right.
But now we're entering an inflationary period where people don't have that. But
Mhm.
are we leading into a discussion here of staking things in like staking coins and things like that and earning
So
earning
I
that
could
way?
talk about that in DeFi. So
Yeah,
there's
let's talk
lending
about that.
protocols. There's lending protocols. There's also
Because
staking.
this has been my big criticism of DeFi is that how do you create liquidity? That's the big thing with centralized finance is that we have this lending system that creates liquidity essentially based on computer entries. Like
Mhm.
how do you do that in decentralized finance and keep track of all that?
I'm not as good as finance about you if you want me to answer
Okay, so
that.
money's not real, right? Money's like literally not freaking real.
Right.
Okay, and especially in the last 13 years, every time we've had a crisis of any sort, most of the new money that's been created has just been, it's not been physically printed. It's literally just been electronic entries on ledgers with zeros added to things, right? And the government's not really interested in keeping track of that. They can destroy money electronically as well using a variety of different tools. They can do that by buying back bonds in the open market, which a lot of them don't exist on paper anymore. They can raise reserve requirements and suck money out of the economy physically that way, and electronically. And they can also raise interest rates as well. Right? Those are the things. So how do you do that on a decentralized network? Right now, I understand with like something like Bitcoin, where you have defined scarcity, that works, right? But the beauty of centralized finance is you can take the money that you have, put it in the bank, it gets loaned out. Every dollar you put in the bank actually gets loaned out several times over to people out in your community, and that creates economic activity. How does this occur with decentralized finance? Are there lending protocols in place that actually magnify the amount of wealth that's in the system?
There are lending protocols, if that's what
Okay,
you're asking.
that's what I'm asking. I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm the dumb person in this discussion.
So
So
I know at least on Solana, one of them is called Solend, and you can go on there and actually loan. They'll loan out money. People will go in and deposit money, and they'll loan it out to other people, and those people will gain interest, and then those people that are getting the loans out will then use that money somewhere else.
right.
Um, so that's probably in the same sense. And then there is also like liquidity pools. So I've used liquidity pools before. I've gone
So
on like mhm.
do you know how the liquidity pools are structured? Like, so if you go
It
to a
all
bank, right? They take your money in $100,000. They loan out like basically like $400,000 against your $100,000, and they only keep $10,000 of that on deposit.
mhm.
How does a liquidity pool work like that when you don't have something like FDIC insurance backing up that liquidity pool?
Don't have an answer for you.
Okay, so
I
as
mean,
of
each
DeFi
so
doesn't have an answer for this right now. This is my issue with it.
there might be. It's just I wouldn't know. I don't actually know how those function, and each protocol is all developed by a different team. They all have their own way of developing things, so it's all
Right.
super unique.
Okay.
I feel like there is a way around that. I personally don't know the exact technical whatever back end, all that crap that's going on in the background.
Yeah.
Um, but I do know people are actually getting money lent to them, and then if you go on liquidity pools, the interest is as much as like 1,000% depending on stuff.
A thousand
Um,
percent.
so you got to be wary of impermanent loss though when it comes down to that, because you will when you do these lending things, you're also not all the time it's U.S. dollars, but it would be if it is U.S. dollars, USDC or like Tether. So like Circle's version of the stablecoin or Tether's version of stablecoin, or Terra has a stablecoin. Those are attached to the U.S. dollar, so they're always worth $1. Um, but you can go on these you can go on these yield protocols. You can go into a yield farm and
Mm-hmm.
you can deposit, let's say, like one radium token and one serum token, which are two different tokens on Solana's platform. And they'll give you an APY, or which is based on basically how much volume and how much people are wanting that token or wanting to get those tokens and trade those tokens. depending on how many people are trying to trade them and how much volume's on the network, the APY is usually a lot more. But with the risk of volatility also comes impermanent loss. Whereas if both of them are like drastically changing between each other, you could just lose a ton of one of the tokens to the point where it might even go to zero. But you might have gained this token and had twice as much here, but you lost all of this. So at the end of it, sometimes even though it's 700% APY, the APY was on like the serum token, but you lost 50% of your radium, you could have actually lost money.
Yeah. Okay.
Most people don't realize that when they just see 700% APY, they're like, oh man, I'm gonna make a ton of money.
Right.
But that's not always true.
Yeah. So we do have a question here. Is there some automated tool to calculate how much tax you need to pay on a crypto transaction?
I do have this like crypto taxes, like Google Drive. It has a bunch of stuff in there, and there are applications people have. I could probably find one for you.
All right. And then Investing 101 says, I'm just here to mark my attendance. Well, thank you, Investing 101. Look, I'm hoping to have a lot more guests like Adam in the future who are subject matter experts
I'm not an
in
expert.
new and emerging technologies to talk about things. But nobody's really an expert in this. Like it's basically crypto's only been around since 2009, essentially. And very few people were interested in it until the price of Bitcoin really ran up in 2017. And then once it crashed, people lost interest again. And then it wasn't until 2020 that interest kind of like sparked up again. So almost everyone, just like you go on YouTube and you look at almost all of the YouTube financial people, they've basically been trading for the last like 2 years or something like that, started the YouTube channel, and now it's awesome, right? Most people involved in the crypto space are like that. I've really only been looking at it for the last 4 or 5 years, and that's mostly because it keeps coming up in conversation with my clients. They're asking, should I invest in crypto? And my question to them back is crypto actually an asset class? And for the longest time, I could say it's not really an asset class. I think that's changing to a degree. And I think that the leaders here, Bitcoin and Ethereum, are starting to act a lot more like an asset class, especially in the last 2 years. But in terms of its adoption for everyday finances, everyday transactions, and I know I'm going to put you on the spot here, and I know you don't really want to be on the spot here. Which cryptocurrencies do you think are kind of in the lead for that right now? Like I have my opinion, but my opinion.
Everyday transactions.
Yeah.
Well, it really depends what people are looking for. Are we looking for a centralized transaction form of crypto or a decentralized form?
Either one. Like, when am I going to be able to go to Amazon and pay for everything in cryptocurrency? And which cryptocurrencies are going to be dominant and most used?
That's something else I believe is that the majority of the top 100 currencies right now are probably not going to exist in 5 years, and it's going to be replaced with something else because it's, once again, this industry is not mature at all. Yep. Realistically, like DeFi started in 2017. I don't know what's happening right now. I don't like people basically just started adopting if you look at wallets increases in the last even year, like Solana has increased. I don't even know. It's like 700% more wallets. So more people are starting to use it, but with more people using it, and this is where my security comes in, but the more people and more money that starts to flow into crypto, the more hacks there are, the more exploits there are. I don't right now see it being a viable form of transactions just yet. It's just not secure enough. It's not clear enough, and also there's not enough applications that are trustless and secure. Just in the last year, there was this is between like January and today of this year, there has been $1.4 billion removed from DeFi protocols. That's just exploits on actual protocols themselves. That doesn't include like rug pulls, whereas like Iron Finance, which Mark Cuban was in, it just got liquidated because the team ran away, or like NFT projects for the mint projects, they just liquidate your wallet. Like those weren't tracked. That's not even part of the 1.4 billion,
right?
Which means it's probably over $2 billion with that. But weirdly enough, 680 billion of that was only actually like taken and not given back. The other 800 billion has been given back. That's because a lot of people hacking in these protocols don't understand like USDT or like Tether and USDC the Circle stablecoins are still with KYC AML rules. So in order to like bring it from that wallet to an exchange and put it in US dollars, you have to go through an authority, and they're going to be like, where did you get $600 million from? But I mean, this is going to be controversial, but I don't see right now Bitcoin layer 1 itself. It is not a form of transaction. It wasn't made in that regard.
Right.
It is the most sound money. If you read the Bitcoin Standard, I have it right. It's right over here. It's actually a book basically about economics and the history of money. I do agree with it, but most people cannot afford to pay the transaction fees on Bitcoin. People are trying to solve that with things like
Bitcoin Lightning or something on top of that.
So there's Lightning Network. There's also Stacks, which is a lot newer. Ethereum right now is as well. Ethereum, once it goes to Ethereum 2.0, I could see it being a much better form of transactions, because I believe for smart contract platforms right now, Ethereum probably is the most decentralized, but it's not the most efficient and not the most scalable unless you use layer 2s. But with layer 2s, I think the barrier to entry for most people getting into DeFi itself is already too much. It's too difficult. Like, most people don't use Ethereum. They don't use the blockchains. They're just speculating. They're watching YouTube videos, and they just see what other people see what other people say. And they also read the white paper, and that's all they have. But most, like, if you invest into stocks, you don't see a Tesla car on the road, you're not going to be like, wow, that thing's the greatest thing ever. You never see a video of Tesla or somebody using a Tesla. You're not like, oh, it's the best car ever. Same with blockchain. Like, you should probably use the blockchain itself, actually use the applications, and then you should make a much more informed decision. But Solana right now is the cheapest I've seen. So at the current stage of development, Solana makes the most sense for transactions, but that could change over time, and I do think it will change over time. And with Ethereum 2.0, as long as it doesn't take way too long, I think Ethereum, just due to its adoption and the maturity of the network, right now probably has the most potential for being the best smart contract platform, but Solana is in a close second. And I would put Avalanche as number 3.
Avalanche.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Avalanche is relatively new.
Question: is GME getting into the metaverse?
Depends what you mean the metaverse, but GameStop is creating a NFT platform and an NFT marketplace. So. Okay.
And then Chris says, any thoughts on Sand token? This is the token used for Sandbox, the metaverse, or?
Sandbox is actually, I was going to comment on that earlier when somebody asked about Decentraland. So the Sandbox is, I find, more interesting than Decentraland. And they're doing a lot cooler things. And I feel like Decentraland just lacks in development. Sandbox is a little more sophisticated. I don't know actually what the token itself does. I assume it's kind of like Mana, where it's the in-game currency. But I would prefer Sand over Decentraland if we're looking at metaverse platforms on Ethereum.
Okay.
Not financial advice, but.
Yep. Like, if you're taking financial advice from a couple of guys on the internet, well, I wouldn't do that. Number one, no one's really allowed to give financial advice, through, actionable financial advice through the internet. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so Dubs says, did you guys talk about Algorand yet? We just mentioned Algorand. Actually, Adam, you're the one that got me interested in Algorand months and months and months ago. And I ended up reading the white paper and everything involved. I may be suffering from a little bit of a bias here, because this is the first project that I really dove into really deeply. But talk to me about your opinion of the state of Algorand right now.
So Algorand is different. Like, I don't compare Algorand to Ethereum and Solana. Mm-hmm. A lot of people would. It is still. So if anybody here that doesn't know about Algorand, they've claimed to solve the blockchain trilemma. Most platforms at this stage have. So Algorand is at a stage right now.
The trilemma right now is
decentralization, scalability, and
security.
Security, yeah.
Yeah.
So Algorand uses like honestly, I haven't studied Algorand in a
And the
while.
trilemma basically says that you can only have two of those, right? You can't have all
Yeah,
three.
that was with
So
Vitalik Buterin. It said you
yeah,
can only have two, you can't have three. So they chose security and decentralization, and the Ethereum scalability is taking more of a hit, and Bitcoin it also lacks the scalability. Um, but Ethereum 2.0 is supposed to solve the scalability problem. So
but in
Algorand
terms of
is.
yeah, go
Mhm.
ahead, Algorand.
I really like Algorand, but once again, I do not compare them to Ethereum. I don't compare it to Solana. They don't really focus on the same things. So Algorand is way more of a mature community. It is founded by Silvio, who also has he's a
By
PhD.
mature community, you actually mean it's not dominated by a bunch of maximalists who think that
No,
they don't stink, right?
no, not by
Yeah.
that. I actually mean in terms of
Okay.
like education and
Well,
experience.
that's what I
Um,
meant too. It's
More like
we're
traditional.
comparing this to Cardano's community. It's Algorand's a step above that.
I am
I'll say
not
it. You don't have to.
I'm not going to talk about Cardano. Cardano right now has nothing. So Cardano doesn't have anything live on their mainnet. Nothing
Yeah.
has. At the current stage of Cardano, I don't want to hate on it because there's nothing really to. It is all speculation because there's nothing really live besides there are some NFTs and stuff like that. But for the most part, you cannot use Cardano right now. You can send money, that's fine, but
Yeah.
nothing has really been built. Um, like Solana is gaining a lot of traction because there's so many people building on it. There are hundreds of developers moving to like quitting their jobs, going to Solana, even Ethereum. People are quitting their jobs, going to Ethereum. Avalanche, people are quitting their jobs, going to Avalanche. And at this point, now people are starting to build on Algorand. Algorand has not. They're also moving a little bit slower, but I do think Algorand has a lot of cool things that are coming up. Closer, probably in quarter one of 2022 there will be a lot more probably hype around Algorand just because more applications going to be launching. Um, but what I've seen on Algorand is a lot more like they do a lot more CBDCs, which are central banking digital currencies.
Right.
They have a lot
And
more
they have
stable.
a couple of like Marshall Islands already,
Mhm.
and they have. I guess the unique situation around that is more than half of the population of the Marshall Islands actually lives outside of the Marshall Islands and works in like New Zealand, Australia, or something like that. And they need an inexpensive way to remit funds back home. And using the wire system wasn't working because fees were so high.
Mhm.
So they sponsored like a central bank digital currency, as well as this whole protocol for like essentially for Marshall Islanders to use. But they ended up going with Algorand. But there's a few other like Micronesian countries that are doing the same thing, from what I understand. Is that correct?
Um, so there's not. There's probably only two or three that have
That
announced on
was
Algorand.
probably the wrong. Sorry, that's probably the wrong way. The Federation of Micronesia is actually a country.
Mhm.
Basically, island nations in the Pacific that are doing this. Sorry, somebody's going to
Um,
get me on geography.
but there are a lot of countries are looking towards Algorand for central banking digital currencies. You won't really see that with Solana. You probably haven't seen that. I don't think I've seen that with Ethereum either. Bitcoin has done it as like El Salvador, for example, but a lot of stable coins are being built on Algorand. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then on top of that, Algorand, from what I've seen, is a lot more like traditional backgrounds, corporate backgrounds. A lot of people they're actually integrating like enterprise companies within the blockchain, and it's in that sense it is actually centralized because they're not decentralized, and they will they will not even say they're decentralized. But something that's like I found is really cool is a project called Opulus.
Mm-hmm.
Opulus is actually like a music platform. They're integrating with Apple Music and Spotify. And for those not like familiar with how the music industry and producers, they don't really get paid very well. The majority of the middlemen take most of the money. So there are platforms like Audius is one, which is on Solana, and they're also on Ethereum right now. But they're creating like a decentralized Spotify or another version of like a SoundCloud, um, where they actually pay out in audio tokens to the creators and also the users themselves. Compared to like if you go on Spotify, you're paid on your listens, and your listens is fractions of penny for whatever you're doing, which isn't really not super profitable. And my brother works in music, and he can't really leave his job because he doesn't have enough listens, and you need like millions, like hundreds of millions of listens to
Right.
realistically like make money in music, unless you're doing tours and having your shows sell out. But even there, and like there's still middlemen taking all your money with tours. But I don't want concerts to go away. We can't really decentralize concerts.
Right. Well, there was, what was it? It was once again on the I can't remember. I keep forgetting the name of the video game. They airdrop on the island and murder everyone.
Fortnite.
Fortnite, but this Fortnite had a digital. They've had a number of digital gatherings and digital.
They've had a lot.
Like so, yeah. But they had the first one in the middle of 2020, and something like 1 million people showed up.
Yeah, I was there actually.
You were there.
Yeah.
Marshmallow. So you were part of history then.
Marshmallow.
Absolutely part of history.
I think Travis Scott did one.
Yeah.
Those are cool. But Oculus is another one that's one actually built on Algorand, or at least they're on Ethereum now. They're moving over to Algorand. You can go on their white paper. It's pretty cool. Yeah. But they do like a decentralized music sort of. It's a little more. It's pretty complicated, but they take like creators' albums and they basically create an NFT, or at least they use the buzzword NFT, where NFT is actually now becoming a very broad term because it's non-fungible, but people are fractionalizing NFTs, which then makes it not necessarily non-fungible. Non-fungible meaning there's only one version of that, but if you fractionalize it, then there could be 100, although it leads up to the one. Yep. So like they'll take an album from a creator and they're partnering with, like, you'll see Chance the Rapper's on their website as one of their advisors, but you can buy the NFT itself, you can buy a fraction of that NFT, and then whatever monetary gain through like Spotify and Apple Music from that NFT album, that gets paid out to the users that decided to purchase a fraction of that NFT of the album, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Let's move on to some questions here. Here's one that I couldn't answer to save my life. Orlando Sanchez says, what about XLM?
Oh boy. So there's about 10,000 currencies. Stellar. I honestly don't know much about Stellar. So something I like to look into, regardless of how good a technology is, it only matters so much if nobody's interested in it and nobody's using it. So I don't know enough to say about XLM, but I don't really see many people in the actual crypto community talking about it. I know it's like I think it's a payment network. If it is a blockchain that you build on, I don't know anybody building on it right now. But honestly, I don't really know enough to talk about it. So
I think I'm of this opinion too, and it only makes sense, but the successful blockchains are going to be the ones where people are building on them. There's 6,000 blockchains out there, at least right now, or more. And most of them don't have anything built on them. Mm-hmm. Most of them don't have so if you're investing in crypto as an investment, right, not necessarily worried about its use cases, the first thing you probably want to consider is what's being built on the network. And
who's using the network, how many people are using the network, and how many people and what type of people are building on the network.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's a good thing. So I don't know anything about XLM either. So GC is a frequent guest here, or frequent somebody who comes on the live stream frequently. Says, "What's your largest crypto holding, and what does he think about option B, and how that will affect crypto going forward?"
So my largest crypto holding is actually technically not a crypto. I own primarily in NFTs. But I would say, because I'm so involved in Solana and the company I work for is extremely involved in Solana, the most I hold is in the Solana blockchain and like alternative coins that are on top of Solana. But I don't necessarily have like all my money into one specific token. I still own several different chains. Like 4 of my largest blockchain holdings are Ethereum, Solana, Algorand, and I can't even think right now. Avalanche, I think.
Avalanche, yeah.
I think I own one other. But yeah. Oh, Polkadot. Yeah.
Okay. So, and that actually leads us into the next question. My crypto genius on YouTube loves Solana and Polkadot. Your thoughts on Polkadot?
I do like Polkadot. I like his name's Gavin Wood, the founder. I like the concept around Polkadot. I do like how many people are interested in Polkadot. My one concern with Polkadot is I had a hard time using Polkadot. I actually went on their platform and tried to use it. But I like the idea, which I spoke about earlier, about multi-chain like interoperability, whereas a bunch of different blockchains are able to basically talk to each other. Something that's really hard to solve is actually like having them transact with each other. But Polkadot creates a way where you basically, for lack of better explanation, it's just super hard to explain because I don't know how it actually functions, but you cannot send like a token from one to another. You have to wrap it. So if you ever see W before like a USDC or WETH, it's wrapped Ethereum. That is where it's actually like you took it from one chain to another. It's not actually on that chain, but it's reflecting whatever is happening on the other chain.
Okay.
But that's how at least chains are talking to each other and interacting with each other. And Polkadot's at least allowing that. And I like the concept of interoperability because I don't believe there's going to be one winner of blockchain. Like it's not just going to be Bitcoin. It's not just going to be Ethereum. There could be 5, there could be 10, who knows?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, is that intermediary coin or intermediary solution is probably going to be, there's going to be a solution somewhere there, and it's going to be exploited. Yeah, and let's talk about exploitation just for a second. I don't know if you've ever encountered some flat earthers. I don't know why, but I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. In the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu community, there is this like underlying strain of flat earthers, and you encounter them mostly through this one academy called 10th Planet, and they're almost impossible to get there. Like I can literally prove to you that the Earth is round with 2 rulers, a cell phone, and some math, right? Just like the Greeks did it 3,000 years ago. But that doesn't matter. And but I think the most effective argument that I ever came up with was whether it was to counter the whole flat Earth thing was capitalism. That if the Earth was really flat, I didn't come up with this argument. I read it somewhere. If the Earth was really flat, capitalism would have exploited it by this point. There would be tours to see the giant like ice wall in the back, or at the at the edge of the world. There'd be like a rope swing that would swing you over the edge of the world, and they charge you $100,000 to jump on it or something like that. Right? That is the point. My point is that capitalism will end up exploiting everything that can be exploited. And my thing with Polkadot is that it creates interoperability between 2 different blockchains, but how does it benefit? How does that network benefit by doing that? Like, is it taking it? Does it charge its own gas fees? So if you're moving something from Ethereum to Algorand's network, are you paying gas fees on Ethereum, gas fees for Polkadot, and then fees for Algorand as well?
So each chain has their own tokenomics behind it, and generally your base token. So like even if you I'll come back to Solana, not a lot because Solana is the one I know the most about.
Yeah.
I don't actually know how Polkadot tokens are paid out, but like for Bitcoin mining, for example, whenever you pay a transaction on Bitcoin, the proof of work mechanism, consensus mechanism, the miners get paid out in the transaction fees because they're the ones using the energy to run the network.
Right.
Similar to Solana, the validators and the stakers are the ones that are getting paid out in those transaction fees for every time somebody utilizes the network. And to transact on Solana, even if you go on a decentralized exchange on Solana, you have to have a Solana token in your wallet because that's what you pay fees with. Even if you're transacting Radium to Serum, you're still going to have Solana and you're going to utilize Solana's token to pay out. So I would assume with Polkadot, which I don't remember, but whenever some transaction happens, whenever somebody uses the network, they need to utilize Polkadot tokens in order to make that transaction. Chainlink's the same. Whenever people utilize Chainlink's network, they have to pay out in Link. And I do want to answer because GC, you said, I do not know what Algorand option B actually is. I didn't look too much into governance. I'm not super involved in the what's actually going on Algorand. I don't study a lot about like governance, and I mean there's way too much to study in crypto for me to keep up. I would have to be awake for 80 hours a day when there's only 24 hours if I wanted to find out everything that was going on. Even then I wouldn't know everything. But I'm way more involved in what people are building, and I'm trying to find out what different projects are being built. My job involves me like actually talking to projects, finding the cool projects to work with. So I don't really worry about tokenomics all the time. And I think something that people fall in a lot with tokens is over analyzing everything to a point where it's like you're analyzing the white paper and sorry, I'm not trying to be but I'm not basically like I just feel like people overanalyze everything. They look into white papers, they read about the tokenomics, they read all this information, and they don't actually look at the network themselves. The most you're going to find out about a network is you've actually just purchase the token on Coinbase or Binance, go to the actual blockchain, find a wallet on that blockchain, move your money over, and start using the apps on the blockchain. And you'll find out how easy it is to use, what applications are on there, do they function well. If you're having a hard time trying to figure out how to use a blockchain, it's probably, most people are going to have the same experience, and it's probably not something useful, and it's probably not something that's going to get adopted very well. If the applications are super easy to use, which is why people use, like, Ethereum has some really easy apps to use. The wallets can be hard, like MetaMask is terrible. But like Solana is super easy to use. Avalanche is pretty easy to use. Algorand's honestly really easy to use. There's just not enough applications on it right now.
Okay. And that's, you know, that's the business principle that was proven at the early stages of the computer revolution, is it doesn't matter how good something is, if it's easy to use, that's going to be the one that's most widely adopted.
That goes with Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Bitcoin, people can hate on Bitcoin all they want. I personally don't own Bitcoin. I wouldn't own gold. I like to invest in things that I find super interesting.
Right.
So I invest in like Unity software. I find is like one of
Actually, I was just going to bring that up too, that Unity software. Yeah.
But I like to invest in things that are interesting. I don't find Bitcoin interesting, but in terms of like why it is so popular, why people like it so much, I believe that's just because it's so simple to understand. When you go to Ethereum, it's like, holy crap, what is this thing? If you listen to Vitalik Buterin talk about Ethereum, it just goes way over your head because he talks 60 miles an hour, and it's like you can't.
And he's always highly technical. He doesn't know how to dumb things down. So absolutely does not.
It's way more complicated. They have this burning mechanism. Like, it all sounds super cool, but it takes you 3 months to figure out what Ethereum actually does. So it is super cool and all, but like that's why Bitcoin gets so much popularity. It's simple to understand. It's sound money. It's gold, digital gold. That's about it.
Yep. So, question from Invest with Jace. Interesting to hear a lot of people, especially on YouTube, recently talking about the upcoming bear market for crypto and comparing it to the 80% crash in Bitcoin. When do you see the next bear market?
Is that for me or you?
I'll take this one. So most people, when they make that determination, the extent of their due diligence is them looking at some charts and saying it's going up too fast, too quickly. That's the extent of their due diligence. What I'm going to say is that there's absolutely no predicting a bear market whatsoever. Like, I've made so much money with so little money in crypto in so short a time that I'm constantly on the edge of my seat right now. But I have to remember I only put in a couple $1,000s, but I'm constantly on the edge of my seat right now. Like, when is it going to crash? When is it going to crash? It has to crash at some point, right? Mm-hmm. But that's not necessarily true. It doesn't necessarily have to crash. And I'm seeing the price of a lot of these coins starting to stabilize now. Like Solana really, it's like you've seen some pretty big jumps, but on a day-to-day basis, it's not swinging back and forth like 30 or 40% like Shiba Inu is or something like that. Algorand's the same way. It's been bouncing around between like $1.80, $1.80 per coin and like $2.10 for a while. But that's not an indication to me that things are going to crash. I think that we're going to see a crash generally in coins when a lot of people figure out that there's not a lot being developed or done with the vast majority of these networks. There's nothing being done. They only exist to basically exist. Like, what was the point of Dogecoin when it suddenly like skyrocketed? There was no point. It was a joke. There's still not a lot being developed for it. I know that Shiba Inu like has some sort of exchange or something associated with it, but it's not like being seriously developed either, what I understand. And what was it? Somebody asked on my channel the other day, like, when is Shiba Inu going to get to $1 per coin? The answer is never. And it's simple. Well, the answer is unlikely. At the beginning, it was never, because there were 1 quadrillion coins issued. But there's not enough money on the entire planet for one quadrillion coins being equal to $1. But 41% of the supply of Shiba Inu has been burned at this point. I guess it's feasible at the extreme if millions of people decide to burn some of their currency, that eventually gets to $1. But then you're enforcing scarcity at that point, right? Which was kind of the point. The point of Shiba Inu was that it was deliberately not scarce. But no, I don't think that it's anything more. I don't think Shiba Inu is anything more than a fun distraction. But I think something like a meme coin run could actually trigger a larger crash in crypto at some point. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure that it's not entirely justified. Like, why is one SOL worth $210 or something, whatever it was at the end of the day? Why exactly is that?
How do you value something? Is just how much does everybody think it's worth? Yeah. So even for like Shiba Inu, I mean, as much as I don't think Shiba Inu is going to do what it's going to do, I didn't think Dogecoin was going to remain over 30 cents for this long either. So it's like, yeah, I don't know anybody that any better than the next guy, but it's just like people will make something, and I feel like this is accelerated over the last year with everybody going to work from home and COVID and people being glued to social media. But you can create a story around something that creates a perception that it's worth something. So like Shiba Inu, I mean, I actually got an Uber driver. I got a ride with my Uber driver last Friday, and I was shocked because I had told him my job, which is working in crypto, and he immediately was like, "Holy crap, dude, this is a sign from God!" Like, and I was happy to talk to him about it, but he didn't really have.
This is a sign for me to put my entire life savings in the Shiba Inu.
Actually, that was partially how it went, but he was like, "Yeah, my buddy told me to put like as much money as I could in Shiba Inu," and he was like, "I put in like $80 and it's up like 700% now," and I was like, "Oh, dang, dude, that's awesome." And he does like, how's a broker work? What are different, like, what is crypto? I don't know anything about anything else. He's like, I know about Bitcoin. That's about it. But it's just the whole story that evolves around something can create a perception. But for the majority of people, probably over 90% of people in crypto are in it for money. And I did see a question if I was in it for money or for what else. But I personally, like, I don't buy into meme coins and shit coins, for lack of a better word. But I know a lot of people that do, and they do it for the money itself. And I like to sleep at night, and I can't wake up in the morning. I can't be waking up at 2 a.m. in a panic every day looking at Coinbase and seeing my Shiba Inu is down 40%. But essentially everybody values stuff where they want to value it. And I know Shiba Inu's market capitalization is $40 billion. I'm not going to buy it myself, but I could see it. I honestly, like, if social media picks something up, the news start picking stuff up, it could go higher. Yeah. But if there's one guy with $5 billion in his wallet of Shiba Inu tokens, if he liquidates that, it could also crash it.
Yeah, definitely. One second, I got a question here that I don't see. Has happened said, wait, not logged. So you're the white wolf and has happens. Okay. What do you think about Taproot and smart contracts on Bitcoin?
Taproot.
That's not something that I'm familiar with, or a question that I could answer. So I apologize for that. Do I call you white wolf or has happened? So there's kind of like a German theme going on there, isn't there? Besides Deutschland?
I do not know what Taproot is, actually.
Okay. And Chris says, can you pawn an NFT? That's an interesting question. Can you pawn an NFT? Why would you pawn it? Just sell it.
What are you?
Oh, okay. Maybe he's talking about you could act as the pawn shop.
There is something called PawnFi, which is
so you could drop your NFT there, and then they could loan against it, or you could take a loan against it.
You can loan against NFTs. I don't know how those actually work, but there are ways to loan against NFTs. You can fractionalize NFTs. There are ways to modify NFT and NFT collectibles. Right now, it's not super great because it's really hard to verify NFTs, and also, like, another way to explain this, like, we work in digital television in my firm. We're digital television security, so we do a lot of like anti-piracy stuff. which relates to NFTs because you can verify it on a blockchain, verify like a picture using probably, I mean, I don't do it myself. I'm not super technical, but like you can find in television when people steal your films, steal your TV shows, we go find you and fine you for doing that stuff. And you can do that with NFTs where like somebody like NBA Top Shots are gonna have, they're selling those photos of like LeBron James or Michael Jordan dunking and like, you know, in a championship game, which are really well-known photos or moments in history. And if you can imagine somebody purchases that NFT, they have the rights to that photo. Nobody else has the rights to that photo. If you wanted to use that picture on social media, on the internet, anywhere else on TV, you would need to find whoever owns that NFT and pay them or get the rights to that to actually utilize it to create a meme or some commercial, stuff like that. So I know people are finding ways to like monetize NFTs through that aspect though. I don't know how the lending actually works though.
Okay. And then that's interesting. I didn't even think about pawning NFTs, but that's actually GC asked. He asked this of me too. Is that do you participate in algo governance?
I did not. I don't know.
Would you be allowed to do that with your job?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
I asked like, and I was shot down on this. They like that. Yeah. So, and GCL says any crypto under 1 billion market cap that you think isn't recognized but has a lot going for them.
So the thing about like growing, if you think about growing blockchains, most people just know because there's I see Instagram. I did not have an Instagram. I don't have social media besides Twitter, and you won't find a photo of me online probably anywhere because I use my NFT as my profile picture. But for tokens under $1 billion market cap, a lot of the growing blockchains that are gaining a lot more attention right now, most people only know about the actual blockchain themselves. But if you look at the actual like applications with utility on top of them, like Algorand right now, for example, doesn't even have a decentralized exchange. You cannot really trade tokens on Algorand. It's really difficult to. So like, for example, when like something like that launches, most people don't even know it exists. And when like AlgoDex is an example of something that's going to be launched on Algorand, when that launches, it might be worth in the millions. It has a lot of potential. But with decentralized finance and all these DeFi applications, there's also a lot of risk because most of them are not audited. They don't have security. They're built by teams of 2 or 3 people. They built it in a couple months. You know, they went to Berkeley for a year. They worked at Google, and all of a sudden they're like, I'm going to go save the world and create the next revolutionary application. So just be wary if you do ever use a decentralized protocol. Like there's so many risks. You can lose everything within 5 minutes. If you watch the Squid Game token, it literally it was up like 75, I don't know, 25,000.
2,400%.
Yeah, and it just crashed to zero in 5 minutes.
Yeah, and that's because what happened?
Mm-hmm. So I don't have anything specific because there's 10 million tokens by now. There's literally like 10 that launch every day, if not 30 or 50. So
no, what happened with Squid Token? How did that go to zero?
So that one was, the reason that went up is because it got over the news that everybody was like, Squid Game as a token. For one, Squid Game is not associated to the token, so it was just a ripoff. The teams, they announced who they were, but it wasn't real who they actually were. They just took some fake names. If you actually Googled them, you couldn't find them. People were investing money in the Squid token. When they tried to sell the Squid token, there was no way to sell it because it was locked in the contract. Because it was, I don't even think it was open source. So you probably couldn't see the code of the contract, but the money got locked in there. There was no way to sell it. And then when the token skyrocketed, the founders just liquidated everybody's money and ran away with the money.
Wow. Okay. Jonathan, who's a frequent contributor on my channel, says meme coins have a point to rip off the next guy in line, says the last guy in line. It's hard to disagree with that, man. It really is. It's hard to disagree with that. Meme coins are fun, and I'll always throw a couple $100 at a meme coin, but no more than that. You know, they're fun, and trying to get in and get out without losing your skin is got to be. It's a little fun. I'm not gonna lie. but it's not part of my investment strategy, and I hope it's not part of yours.
Squid Token founders were amateurs. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. GC says thoughts on Zillow. Yeah, okay, so that's off topic with crypto today. I do have thoughts on Zillow. I'd be happy to cover that next week on the live stream, but today we're going to stick with crypto, Metaverse, Decentraland, or Metaverse and NFTs and that sort of thing. So we see here. Investor J says, I love how broad the answer is. Thank you. So eye-opening. You're so right. How do you value these coins is on hype. It's important to say, like, I had a guest last week or 2 weeks ago, Lauren, that was talking about the US dollar and how it has intrinsic value. Well, I didn't want to like vehemently disagree with him on the air. But the reality is it really doesn't. The US dollar is not backed by anything other than the claims paying ability of the United States. It's really simply backed by faith in the currency, right? Which any fiat currency is just based on faith. And that is what we have with cryptocurrencies as well. So I don't think it's a valid criticism of cryptocurrency to say it's based on nothing. No currency, unless it's backed by like gold or silver or something like that, is actually based on anything at all. So so all of them are simply based on what a market feels like that coin is worth or that token is worth. That's it. Let me see here. Hess Happens says not German. All right, sorry about that. Hess Happens. You're an OC. Big Game of fans. Oh, big Game of Thrones fan. White Wolf equals Jon Snow. Okay, I get it now. Interesting. I love that show, by the way. And Isaiah Castillo says, "What's your Instagram, Adam?" Got another follower there.
Don't have one.
Don't have one. Follow him on Twitter.
Cryptograph Adam.
Cryptograph Adam. That's right. Hess Happens says at GC. That's a private conversation between you guys. All right. So here we go. Interesting question. How are knockoff NFTs handled, i.e. some image with a few pixel differences?
So what by that do you mean like a derivative? Because people create, like, if this, I own this NFT at least, but there's derivatives where they come like really similar, but every NFT is verified and has an authority address. So everything in the blockchain is fully transparent, depending on what blockchain you use, that is. But for like Solana, for example, you can go on SolScan or you can go on the Solana transaction pages. You can actually search up specific transactions. You can, if you knew my wallet address, you could look up my public key. But if you pulled up the specific address to this NFT, each NFT has its own unique address, which is non-fungible, where there's only one attached to an address, compared to like Bitcoin is fungible. There's 21 million Bitcoins that will ever be generated. And each one is under an authorization. And for example, this is a Solana monkey. It's Solana monkey business. And if you go, you can actually verify that it came from a specific address. And if somebody else created a derivative of it, it would not be from that authority address. While this is a unique address itself, and all the other 4,999 Solana monkeys have a unique address, and they're all unique in their own way, there's only one authority address.
So it's the address that's unique. It's not the image itself. Like, nobody really gives a crap about the pixels. It's the address associated with it.
Correct. So you're buying into basically an address on the network, but we're also like, it's also highly speculative because we're betting on the fact that at one day these will be verified. Like Twitter is going to add verifications to it, and it's going to check what address this came from to verify that I have this specific NFT. So that's something we're kind of, if you're buying an NFTs, you're betting on things like that it's going to over time develop and mature. But NFTs are at a stage right now, it's not very mature. There's a lot that needs to be figured out in NFTs. The entire concept is amazing. There's a lot that can be done with it, but there's a lot of problems with it too. There's a lot of problems with crypto in that sense too.
Okay. Interesting. So Isaiah Castillo says, have you heard of Proppy? I have not.
I have not.
What is anything about this? And of course, you're quick enough to just look that up on the spot. Right? So I'm not necessarily...
Real estate transactions, maybe? I don't know if this is... I have not.
Yeah, so we haven't heard about that. We'll talk about. I'm going to have Adam on probably. I haven't asked him this yet, but maybe once a month or so to talk about the world of crypto, because look, it's evolving quickly. He's going to learn more. I'm going to learn more, and we're going to need to talk about this relatively frequently. Here, you just let me see here. Another question. So Orlando says, any thoughts on Meta? Orlando, you mentioned a couple of coins so far that I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't know that either.
You don't know that one either. Yeah, out of 6,000 coins so far, just at last count. And this is a good question, though. Have you created your own NFT?
I have not. I've been involved in like some advisory stuff, but I don't have, honestly, I don't really have time right now. And I also, if I wanted to create an NFT project, I would want to put a lot of time into it and not just create some like collectible thing that's worthless and has no use case. I would rather have some more concept or complicated concept, I guess, and more utility and like maybe a decentralized organization regarding or evolving around it, I guess. So no, I have not though. I do own about 50 NFTs though.
You own 50 NFTs.
It's between 40 and 50.
This is a question for you then. Do you think NFTs have a high risk of losing value against other
Absolutely.
assets? Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Yeah, I do.
NFTs are extremely risky. It's one of the most risky assets on the planet right now, I'd say. For one, I'm betting on the cryptocurrency itself. So I own a lot on Solana, is where I have the majority of my NFTs. I also own some on Ethereum. But Solana is, you have to purchase the Solana token unless you go to like FTX itself. But the NFTs are priced in the token of the blockchain you're using. It's not priced in US dollars generally. So I'm going on Solana using my Solana tokens to purchase an NFT. Both the Solana token is fluctuating on a daily basis, and also the NFT market is fluctuating.
I think the NFTs are probably just as exciting as naked puts are.
It's basically, I would compare it to meme coins where it could just liquidate at any moment.
Yeah. If you've ever like bought a naked put before, that's where you basically you buy the obligation to. I'm sorry, you sold a naked put rather. You sell the obligation to buy someone's stock at a certain price, and then it drops like a rock. Like that's exciting, risky, and you generally lose money. So but what I'm saying is like I think that the NFT market, until it matures a little bit more, I think it's just highly risky. Mm-hmm. And let me see here. Chris says, where do you buy and sell your NFTs?
So there are, I do it on Solana. So I actually do it with my Phantom wallet, which is a wallet, like a browser extension that goes on my Google Chrome. I have to move money over from like Coinbase, Binance to there to do that. But there's a few different exchanges. It really depends what I'm trying to buy. If you wanted to buy a Solana Monkey, your best bet is to go on SolanaMonkey.business itself, because that is one of the only places to buy monkeys, and it's also the one with the most volume for monkeys. But like if you wanted to get, I don't know, like DGods is another one. It's only on Alpha Art. It's also on Solana. There's a bunch of different NFT marketplaces on Solana. For Ethereum, OpenSea is definitely the most used and has the most volume. So I would just go to OpenSea for everything. But Solana is like a lot more spread out over like 4 or 5 different marketplaces. Solana Art, Magic Eden, there's Digitalized.market, and then there's also Alpha Art, and then SolanaMonkey.business.
Okay. And then hold on a second, Orlando. So he asked us a question about Meta's DM coin. You mean Meta Platforms DM coin? It's a rebrand of Facebook Libra. So I barely paid attention when Facebook said they were developing their own coin. I barely paid attention, and I would not have really paid that much attention to Facebook saying they're diving into the metaverse if it hadn't made one of my videos just explode in popularity. So like that's a video that you and I worked on together, the metaverse one back in April. But that I wouldn't have paid attention to at all. It's just another coin built on Ethereum. And am I correct about that?
Yeah, they're building. Yeah. I think they're building a stable coin on Ethereum right now.
Yeah. Okay. And it's, I try not to have such a negative attitude towards Facebook right now, but I'm a little bit concerned that it actually may be a little bit too late for Facebook to like jump into this at this point. There's just a lot of other projects that are further down the road, but they are well capitalized. They have tons of money. They like the tons of advertising dollars that are spent with them. I spend a lot of money advertising on their network or on Facebook networks for a lot of my businesses and Instagram and things like that. But yeah, so I'm not convinced that Meta Platforms is going to transform Facebook like the way Facebook thinks that it is. We'll see what happens. Let me see here. Has happens. That's a very good question here. Does Solana have an advantage for developing games over Ethereum because of its use of proof of history, scalability, and high storage?
So I kind of answered this earlier a little bit, but long term, I don't know. As right now, like there's the Solana hackathon just finished, so I'm actually going to Lisbon, Portugal in 2 days because there's a Breakpoint conference where they actually go over all the different submissions of development teams that they submitted, and the majority of them are in gaming and social media. Right now, gaming and social media is blowing up on Solana because it is way more efficient and efficient, yeah. In terms of like the gas fees and we answered gas earlier, but transaction fees, how much it costs to actually use the network. Anything you do on the network costs gas. And right now Solana is like less than a penny, whereas if you use Ethereum, it would be like $10 to $50 to even $300 sometimes. So like Decentraland, if you wanted to buy something on the marketplace, you're going to pay $10, $30, $50, $300. It's almost like you're paying just a bunch of tax on your transaction that you're never getting back. Whereas like Solana gas is a fraction of a penny. So if I wanted to play a video game and trade with somebody, I'm going to spend a fraction of a penny, which makes gaming and social media more efficient right now, at least. That is, as long as people aren't using L2s on Ethereum or Ethereum, once Ethereum 2.0 launches, it could actually help with scalability and reducing gas fees.
Okay, very interesting. Let me see here. Are there any other questions here? We're reaching the end of when I said we would do this here, but Isaiah Castillo says hash graph or blockchain. Is that an answerable question?
I don't know what you mean by that. Hash. Are you talking about?
Yeah, Hedera hash graph. He's asked about it before.
Isn't Hedera hash graph a? Yeah, it's distributed ledger technology, which makes it a blockchain. So that's it's not really a yes or no question, I guess. Hashgraph is blockchain.
Okay,
does it make sense?
Yep. So yeah, and he talks about this. Yeah, okay.
Stoner
Cats says it's not a blockchain. So do you watch or own Stoner Cats? You know what? I don't know what you're talking about. That sounds very interesting. What the hell are Stoner Cats? I need to know this.
One of the funniest videos I ever saw was in it's Mila Kunis and Ashton Kutcher. That's their project. I have not actually seen it. I probably should watch it. I don't own a Stoner Cats, but it was one of the funniest videos ever because they were sitting in the kitchen and they panned the camera over and Vitalik's sitting at their kitchen table. They're talking about Ethereum and blockchain. They pan over and Vitalik's sitting there and he like looks over. I'll send you that after.
Okay.
It's one of the funniest videos I've ever seen. But no, I do not own it. I have not seen it. I probably should.
Awesome. Well, look, we're reaching the end of the time where I said you'd be on. I wanted to thank you for coming on today. I realize this is the first live stream that you've ever done. You did a fantastic job, and I'm looking forward to having you on again here in the future.
I do want to comment on this. So distributed ledger is blockchain. I know it says it is distributed ledger technology, but I would call that the same. Because like for example, Bitcoin uses a distributed ledger, which is blockchain.
Yep. Yeah. So we will definitely have you on again as you learn more, as we learn more, and as this technology evolves. So thank you very much. I'm going to end the broadcast right here, and I'll see you guys next week on the live stream. Be out with videos. I'll be out with videos as I can. Thank you so much.